Hello everybody. In this video I'm going to be talking about how I built those sunshades and the isinglass up top to keep me dry and warm and out of the elements that I might encounter when I'm out and about. And it's not exactly a how-to video, but there are some cool things that I think you might be able to incorporate in some of your projects, such as what you see here. That's a big sunshade. I know that they last for years outdoors, even in the harsh Florida environment, and you can buy one like this, cut it up and reuse it for a lot less money than it would cost you to buy a similar material in rolls of fabric. So that's where we're going to start this video. I'm going to show myself using one bigger than this, and I actually wound up using 3 of them. But the first thing I had to do was cut them down to size so I could make my panels. Any cruisers out there, or people that live on a boat, will understand the importance of having an enclosure or protection from the sun. And anybody who's ever tried to make one of these will appreciate how much work actually goes into them. You can see me there measuring to decide how many panels I would need. And there I am sewing some of the material together. I then had to take them and screw them up into the places where they would live so that I could figure out what the next step would be. Some of them would get snaps, some of them would get grommets. Here you can see me trying to reuse some of the old snaps that were already on the boat from prior applications. They had too much paint on them though, so I had to scrape them quite a bit to expose the snap underneath. Then all of a sudden, the brand new snaps, and them were getting along. It's so satisfying. Now I'm over here and burning holes for grommets. I'm using a soldering iron to cauterize the material so it doesn't unravel. Putting on grommets is pretty interesting. You can do it several different ways. They have machines that make it nice and easy, but they're a little bit expensive for a one-time application like this. I figured I could just squeeze them together using a vise. And I did this at first for a little while before I realized that there was a better way. I wound up using a hammer later on. Nonetheless, it worked, and I got the job done, and these things were starting to look like something. The next step would be to add some snaps to these. These are the outer edge pieces that would attach to the old snaps that you saw me scraping. Again, I cauterized a hole, put the snap assembly together. This time I used a hammer to smash the 2 parts together. Once you can attach grommets and snaps to fabric, it really opens up the possibilities of the things you can do. It doesn't have to be an enormous enclosure like I'm making. It could just be a very simple thing to close in the center console on a boat, or to put up some isinglass to keep the spray off of you when the waves get big. Seems unimpressive to anybody who's never done it, but I assure you, this is going to come in very, very handy. Next, I have to figure out a way to roll these things up when they're not being used. That's where Velcro comes into play. This Velcro I bought online in big pieces, and I cut them into strips. It has no sticky back like the most popular types of Velcro. This is meant to be sewn on. Here you see one of the little straps I made. It took a lot of time sitting in that seat at that sewing machine to make all of these things. But with a lot of persistence, I got it all done. Now you know why I haven't been making too many videos lately. I even got it so that when they're in the down position, you can tuck the ugly part of the strap, which has all that Velcro on it, up and out of the way. That's kind of nice. Let's see how it works. This was one of the first panels I had installed. And it was like 100 and some odd degrees, you know, what the feels like temperature was when I did it. So when these were all up, everything got a lot cooler. Here you see those grommets holding everything together, and a few more snaps that needed to be installed. I was able to install these things on the boat, and with the bottom done, I got to work on the upstairs. You know, I'm hard pressed to tell you guys how to do this type of stuff because I'm kind of making this up as I go along. I'm no upholsterer. I've never made a bimini top. But for my own posterity, and for anybody out there curious how I'm doing it, I measure a rough opening where I want a piece of canvas. I roll the top twice, measure where my attachment points are, and burn a hole. As you can see, I just drilled a hole there now in the wood. I'm going to attach this. Here I've got 5 different places. Once it's hung, then I can pull it nice and tight and pin the sides and figure out exactly what size to sew this thing to. See, now I can stretch it out. And pin everything in place. Sewing pins. Alright, well, what I'm doing is I'm pinning the edges about 3/4 to an inch past the pole that's behind it. And there'll be a grommet here and a grommet there. And this way I can attach the adjoining panels. And then what I'm probably going to do for this one is pin the sides really good. Then I'll measure where the bottom's going to be cut. And in this particular case upstairs, I don't know yet if I'm going to cut an opening and put isinglass there, or if I'm going to have a whole nother sheet that is just clear plastic, so that I can see through when I'm underway, and then drop this down if I want shade at the end of the day, or as I'm going along. Let's say I'm heading north. If I have a setting sun and the sun is just blazing hot, I can drop a shade down. So that'll be nice. So yeah, this is not necessarily, again, a how-to. It's more of a way of showing you guys how I did it. And it's a reference from myself, so that someday, if I ever have to do this again, I'll be able to remind myself how I did it. All right, let's take this thing down and bring it inside. I've done a lot of projects in my life that take hours and hours and hours to complete. This one is amongst the most laborious. Now, of course, it would have been a little easier if I had some experience as far as sewing is concerned. And I'll also say that there are some things that I've done in the past that take a long amount of time, and then you realize that it's a bit of a failure. But this project was feeling more and more rewarding the closer I got to it being done. Starting to come together. All the folds are on the same side. Okay, now I've got my piece that is pinned, clamped in place. It's nice and tight. I know that it fits. And unlike the one downstairs where I would just proceed to sewing it, I'm going to mark where a window is going to go in these on the upstairs part here. So I've got my tape measure, and I'm going to measure across, make a couple marks, and then I'll take them inside, connect the dots, fold it over, and add a little see-through material to this. Okay, here's the roll of isinglass, or Strata-Glass, whatever the product's name happens to be. I've sewn it to the material here, right along the perimeter. I still got to sew it once more on the inside and get those pins out. And I'm cutting along this red line here so that there'll be a window looking from the outside. Then I'm going to fold that over twice and I'll have a double stitch here as well. It's terrible fun to get the material to slide under the foot. This little metal foot right here was sticking something terrible to the material. And I couldn't pass it through. So I glued a little piece of that sail material, whatever this sunshade material, to the bottom of the foot so that the material would slide under. Man, and it fixed it right away. But before that, I thought this would be impossible to sew. Anybody who's sewn before would appreciate that little trick right there. Just using a little spray glue and putting foam on the bottom of the foot so that I could slide the material through. I was very proud of myself, obviously. All right, back to work. Due to my lack of experience, this one panel probably took me the entire day to make. Knowing how many panels I had to do to complete this, and then all the straps to hold it up, and then all the grommets, and then all the snaps, oof, it really did test my patience. Okay, we're all sewed up. I reinstalled it so that I can figure out the location of the grommets. And I'll tell you what, this flybridge has already taken on a new feel. How many adventures will I see through this windshield? All right, there's little time to revel in this small victory because I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 more at least to sew up. Fortunately for you, you don't have to do it. So I can just fast forward through that or come back to it at another time. All right, back at it. Figuring out different ways to attach the snaps and the grommets and to sew isinglass fabric. There's been so many challenges in this project. And goodness knows there's probably many ways I could have done it more efficiently, this and that, but the main objective of this video was to show you that it actually can be done if you're patient enough, if you have the basic skills to sew and pattern material and know how snaps and grommets work. Even if you don't know how to use zippers, there's ways to attach these and still have something that functions. Although I did break down and use a couple zippers. You know, on a gray day like today, and many days in the future, when it's rainy and nasty and cold, I'm really going to enjoy having the protection of this upper bridge because it's easier to see from up here. It's very comfortable, and now I am protected from the elements. Hopefully you enjoyed this video and it inspires you to go out. Again, I didn't really try to show you exactly how to do it because I don't know the exact way to do it. And hopefully this lasts. You know, I find that these little tie downs aren't really too much of a pain in the butt versus having zippers like this all over the place. But I've got it at key points up here where the ladder for the dogs is, and for where the ladder for me is in the back. In key spots I've put in zippers. Everywhere else it's just, you know, it takes a little longer to put together, that's all. But it's easier than sewing zippers, I think, because I don't know what I'm doing. So, alright, in the next video I'm going to talk to you guys about the solar panels and how big they are and how big the system is and the inverters and all that cool stuff too, because when you're out there and you're on the anchor or on the hook as they say, it's important to have electricity. But we'll get to that in the next video. Appreciate you guys watching these videos in the meantime, and before you know it, we're going to be out there underway having a good time.